Hey guys. So earlier this week, I read an article by Vox and it was called What AI in Music Can and Can't Do. And it's been on my mind for a while. It's been a long week. Let's do a little bit more of a chill video. Let's just talk about some stuff. I'm gonna talk about what I read in the article, what my thoughts are about it, thoughts on AI in the music industry in general. It was a very long article, I'm not gonna lie. It was like a couple pages, like a little bit more than 10, I think. So a lot of information to get into. We're gonna try to get into all of it in a pretty concise way, but pretty in-depth in just talking about what my thoughts are on this. So before we get into that though, let's get to know each other a little bit. Hi, welcome to my channel. This is where I talk about music and music related things. I like to talk about albums, artists, observations, and events that I see happening in the music industry. So if that's something that you guys seem to be into, you are welcome to like, subscribe, and stick around for a little while. I post every Wednesday, or I try to at least. So hit the notifications if you want to know whenever I post, and follow my socials, I guess. But other than that, let's get into it. So, since the dawn of human history, music has been like a very fundamental aspect of existence in general. It is a medium through which we communicate our emotions, our cultures, our stories. And over time, as we have evolved as humans and our ways of music has evolved, so has technology and its advancements. They have reshaped the way that we create, distribute, and just consume music in general. You know, going from like records to streaming services, each development has profound implications for musicians and listeners alike. And now we see in like the current age in the 2020s, there is a large emergence of generative AI. And it represents a pretty seismic shift that honestly can threaten the livelihoods of a lot of people who have built their careers around music, whether it be musicians, recording like studio people, or even just like music curators and music journalists alike. Now I will say, I don't consider myself to be a music journalist. I don't know if I would give myself that title just yet. But hey, I like journalism, I like music. This is kind of what I do. I prefer to just say I talk about music, but I guess to an extent I'm a music journalist, and this does definitely affect me a lot. The concept of like AI music generation has a lot of promises that it brings to the music industry. It offers very unprecedented access to music creation in general for both novices and very seasoned professionals. You know, people like you and me, no matter who's watching this, I don't know, you could be some sort of like artist or whatever, or you could be literally me who's never touched GarageBand in their life. Okay, that was a bit of a lot, but you get the point. By leveraging these machines and learning models to create music through existing music, it has the potential to expand the creative landscape immensely, allowing individuals with little to no formal training to produce music almost effortlessly. However, as with any sort of disruptive innovation like this, the implications are complex and extremely multifaceted, all of which even I don't fully understand, but I'll try to explain to the extent that I understand it to you guys. So of course, many artists rely on commercial projects like making jingles or film scores and stock music as a source of their income while they develop their craft. Of course, not everybody's gonna be a hit recording artist off the bat, but the now emerging ability of AI to produce this sort of royalty-free composition, it undercuts these opportunities from smaller artists, making it even harder for musicians to be able to sustain themselves financially. And the impact extends beyond individuals. The entire ecosystem of composers, musicians, producers, it's almost all AI generated. Not saying that currently it's AI generated, but it has the potential to be AI generated. But you know, there's the concept of like TikTok music or corporate music that's just made to be played mindlessly, or only to be played for a certain 10 or 15 seconds of it, rather than a piece of like art. Which I'm not saying that like TikTok artists aren't real artists or whatever. That's a conversation for another day. This AI generated music though, it can result in an industry that's dominated by audio memes and novelty tracks, and it just overall reduces the role of creativity in mainstream music production. And this is sort of where we get into the ethics of it, really. One of the most important issues surrounding AI music generation is the question of data provenance, which to put in like simpler words, many AI models are trained on a vast collection of music, and that music is mainly copyrighted, often without the explicit permission of artists themselves. It has led to many legal battles, which are reminiscent of those waged by publishers and visual artists against AI, and just unauthorized data scraping. If you look at the Recording Industry Association, the RIAA, I think it is. They've taken a lot of action to other companies that allege widespread copyright infringement, and they've gone to bat for a lot of artists and a lot of companies in this sense. The musicians and the advocacy groups are calling for very strong protections to ensure that their music is not like subjected to AI generation, and it doesn't come to the expense of their own human creativity, of course. Meanwhile, like a lot of these policymakers up in like DC and everything are grappling with figuring out how to regulate AI in a way that it can balance innovation while also giving fair compensation to artists. There's a guitarist that's also mentioned in this article, and he talks about how human musicians should be prioritized over AI generated content, saying that he can't make it through a solo without quoting somebody, and it's a privilege, it's a human right to be able to reference other artists and to give credit to other people where credit is due. He emphasizes that musicians operate within a framework of cultural exchange and creative reinterpretation, which AI simply can't recreate, as it just recycles past sounds without any genuine innovation or any real nuances to it to a certain extent. He underscores the importance of maintaining this copyright protection, as it is one of the only economic rights that musicians and entertainers really have. And more into these like nuances, we're gonna get into the cultural implications of AI in music, because beyond like the legal and financial concerns, it poses a very deep question about the artistic originality of the music and the cultural diversity of it. AI models, while they are predominantly trained on Western music, they almost homogenize global music in the sense of like other cultures, favoring very familiar or very commercially viable patterns rather than these more diverse, smaller, more unique sounds that you really hear. And this bias towards this mediocrity is what can begin to stifle the diversity of the music, which music itself is a very rich, it's a very evolving art form. There are so many smaller artists, so many innovative artists that honestly, like, even I have never heard of, to think that maybe even AI has never heard of it, because it just groups everything that sounds similar into one category. It almost blocks off these, once again, these nuances. And while artists have embraced AI as a collaborative tool, using it to generate unexpected sonic textures or to push these creative boundaries, others fear that there is this sort of over-reliance on predictive models that could erode, honestly, like the very essence of what musical innovation is. And of course, like as someone who is in tech, I'm not completely against AI, while I am pretty against generative AI, like as a whole. AI can be used for good. It can be used for creative things. It can help get your creative juices flowing if need be. But the concept of creating a whole song or a whole piece of music strictly through generative AI is honestly just unethical, and it's, to an extent, it's inhuman. Because if musicians are increasingly turning for AI for inspiration, will the next generation of musicians even know how to be creative on their own? Historically, music has thrived on human connection and storytelling. Audiences gravitate to artists who have these personal narratives and experiences that can resonate with both them and their fans alike. If you look at the success of musicians like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Harry Styles, and countless others, it demonstrates this sort of endearing appeal that audiences have with authenticity to their music. It's something that AI just would never be able to replicate, that same sort of emotional connection. So what should we do about this? What are we gonna do about this? I think we need to be able to find a way to strike a balance. AI is not a replacement for music, but it can be an aid. Despite all of the challenges that it has posed, it is not inherently destructive. That's not what I'm saying, not at all. That's not what this article is saying. That's not what I think is to be true. I think similar to previous technologies such as digital recordings or synths, and if you look at like electropop now or just techno beats in general, AI has the potential to enhance them. Rather than replace the human creativity, it can be a tool, rather a substitute. It can help refine compositions or experiment with new novel sounds, but the key lies in establishing these ethical guidelines on what is okay and what is not okay for art. Because if you think about, like, this isn't exactly music, but if you think about recently The Brutalists winning an Oscar, the concept of somebody winning an Oscar for playing a part where their voice was essentially AI generated over somebody who worked for 5 years trying to perfect a role. Yeah. It's very important to ensure that musicians have a say in whether their work is used for AI or not. And we should be enforcing fair financial compensation models and fostering a culture that values this human creativity and artistry that we have rather than the algorithmic efficiency, which I kind of talked about in another video, but you know, I'm just saying. AI's integration into the music industry is inevitable. It's not something that we can stop from happening, especially with the way that technology is going now. So it is better to embrace it for what it is and find ways to work with it and around it rather than completely shutting it down. Currently, like in very current times, we do stand at more of a crossroads with it. It is very hard to find the current balance, but I believe that definitely within the next, say, couple years, we'll be able to figure out, get some rules down. It's imperative to just safeguard the livelihoods and artistic integrity of other musicians. And it's only really by addressing this now, addressing these challenges that we have, that we can bring more attention to this, because as much as people like to complain about it, nobody really likes to talk about these sort of issues that we're having, you know? But yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say. It's more of a rant. It's been a long week. Love you guys. Wanted to get something out for you, so that's what this is. Catch you next week. Bye.